What's up everybody, my name is MrHurriicane, and this is my Madden 17 scouting guide video. Today I'm going to take you through what I do when I scout in Madden 17. Being a team builder, my favorite part of franchise mode is drafting players and turning them into superstars. We've seen it in many of my franchises, including my most recent one, my Chargers franchise. To me, there's nothing more fun in Madden than drafting players, building your team that way, and seeing those players make an impact. Now, I'm not the best person at scouting or drafting in Madden. I'm not the most knowledgeable person about it, but I have gotten very good results, and I do like my methods for making sure I can find enough good players so I can get strong draft classes and turn my teams around. If you enjoyed today's video, be sure to leave a like and leave your feedback down below. I'd love to know what you guys think of this video. I want to do more team building style videos because I love team building, and I would love to help others that want to get into it. This video is all about scouting in Madden 17. I'll do another video where I talk about drafting. They're two pieces of this important puzzle in franchise. If you're brand new to franchise or Madden, this will definitely be something that can help you out. So once you get to week 3, then you can begin scouting, and you'll get 175 points each week, or 200 if you have the expert scouting upgrade for your coach. You'll end up getting scouting points 19 different times, weeks 3 through 17, the Super Bowl, and then off-season stages 2 through 4. You'll end up with around 3,300 points or 3,800 with expert scout. To fully scout a player costs 30 points, or 21 if you have the scouting focus on that position group. I'll talk about that in a moment. If you have only the regular scouting and use all your points, you'll end up fully scouting 110 players, and there are 224 draft slots. That means you could fully scout around half the players that could be drafted, but if you're efficient, you can get a lot more than that. Keep in mind, you need to be scouting every week in your franchise because every week it takes away half of your scouting points. You won't have very many at the very end of the season if you wait, so scout every single week. A couple more things here off the bat. If you go to the My Coach tab and go to the Coach Goals, and then go to where you can spend your experience points, when you bank 1400 XP, you can get expert scouting, which gets you an extra 25 points a week, which is almost enough to scout an entire player. So you end up getting maybe 15 more players you could fully scout per season. Next step, a very important one, is go to your staff. This is something you can do at the beginning of the season, but get the scout that is going to help you out the most. And what I mean by that is, don't get a scout that's going to help you with running backs. You're going to use maybe 1 or 2 running backs at a time. Go for defensive back. Go for offensive line. You need 5 offensive linemen every play. You need 5 defensive backs on most plays with all the nickel defense you end up playing. So if you need secondary or O-line, definitely get a scout that focuses on those areas, because that's going to make scouting players of that position group much cheaper, and you can scout a lot more of them and get a better idea of how you can fix your weaknesses. Now you could do the same thing for receiver. Maybe you need a few different wideouts. You could go to wide receiver for scouting and end up getting a discount on those players to scout more of them. It's different depending on your needs, but I like to go with O-line or DB because you're going to need 5 of those guys guaranteed to play. I wouldn't worry about quarterback for scouting, kicker, punter, or anything you need like one of, because you can save points elsewhere and put the 30 points in per player at those other positions. So now when I get to this scouting board, I like to look at how deep every position is, and every season it ends up being different. Sometimes there are like 5 cornerbacks in the first round, and then another season there will be only 1, and that's going to impact basically how deep that position group is. And when a position group is deep, I like to go look at like 5-6 names down the board and focus on players that are easier to get. Think about this: the higher a player is on the board, just the board from all first round picks to second round picks, the higher a player is, the harder it's going to be to get that player, the more competition there is going to be. I prefer to scout more third rounders, second rounders, fourth rounders, because I get a lot more flexibility in how I end up drafting. If I'm spending a bunch of points on first round talent, well, most of those players are not going to be on the board when I'm on the clock. Especially beyond the first round. You want to have options, and there are plenty of good players in the second, third, fourth round, but you also have to keep in mind that you're more likely to find the better players toward the top. It's just there are good players to be found wherever you are in the draft class. Let's go to Joshua Gadsden here, a wide receiver from Wisconsin. Now, for a first-round player, I'm looking for either a B+ or an A- on that first skill because they're a first-round talent. I want a player that can be a difference maker. I was looking for a red zone threat here. He was 6'6", has the red zone threat type, A- spectacular catch, B+ catch in traffic. That's an elite prospect right there. He has great traits. You don't get a lot of information to figure out who these players are, but knowing their height and weight, knowing their type, and their top 3 skills, you can get a great idea of who they really are. Now, when you're scouting offensive linemen, I found in Madden 17 it's very difficult to find what I would call an elite lineman, someone with like B+ pass block and like B run block. First off, B+ pass block is very tough to find. If you do find that, go get that player. For defensive linemen here, Bronson Toon, I like the B+ power moves. That's a dominant trait to me. That's going to put his power moves in the higher 80s, which makes him a great pass rusher and a first-round talent in my book. When you look at the letter grades, think of A- as being in the low 90s, B+ in the high 80s, a B is in the mid 80s. You can kind of just go down the list from there. But I'm looking for B- and higher. I'm not looking for like a bunch of C+, except for in some rare instances. You can also go and check out the draft stories throughout the season. A lot of those players have some of the highest development traits in the game, and it's nice to kind of see the prospects that the game is spotlighting because they're typically players that you want to keep an eye on, whether it's for a good reason or a bad reason. Now, when you're looking at some of these players, sometimes the first 2 ratings show you a lot of promise, like in this case, A stiff arm, B+ trucking. We knew this player was going to be probably really good, but don't try to cheap out and not spend the last 5 points on that player. Sometimes their third skill drops way down to like a B- or a C+, and then you have to think about how complete that player could really be. The 5 points you save by not scouting that player fully is not worth it. And when you fully scout a player, you can see their talent level, like this player is a late 4th rounder based on the scouting, and sometimes that's a way lower number, sometimes it's higher. It's good to know because it can fill in some of the blanks. You don't know these players' intangibles or their full skill sets, so seeing their top 3 combined with their talent gives you an idea of if they're slotted in the right spot for projections. Now for safeties, my big tip here is don't worry about B+ hit power. That's a dime a dozen. You can find that anywhere. Focus more on coverage and tackling. C+ is generally pretty high for coverage. If you find a B- that is really good for a safety. I don't find a lot of what I would call elite safety prospects in the game, but if you can find decent hit power, tackling, and zone coverage, then you have a player to go target like I have found here. He's a late 3rd round talent, but our scouting proved him to be actually a late 2nd round caliber player. Another thing important with scouting these players is knowing when you should stop scouting a player. If there is a 1st round talent and his top skill is a C+ or a B-, I'm probably not going to fully scout that player. Like I said, a 1st round player needs to be a difference maker, and I'm looking for someone who has B+, A- skills. Sometimes a B as the highest is okay if that player is complete. Now, my thresholds do get more lenient down the board here, like Jacoby Heath, for instance. I'm okay with B- pursuit and power moves for a 5th round prospect. If this was a 1st round talent, I would say no way, but what you have here is a late round selection who's going to have his power moves in the low 80s, and while his talent says undrafted, I know he has a trait to lean on. You're looking for a player's strength. The power moves are this player's strength for sure. His undrafted talent probably has a lot to do with his intangibles, which are cheap to raise with experience. Knowing this player has a strength that is important, pass rush is extremely important, even though he's an undrafted talent, I'd still be comfortable taking him in the 6th or 7th round. One thing to also remember is the age of these players. Ryan Bulmer here, a 21-year-old linebacker, you know he's going to have more years to play in your franchise. If you draft a 24-year-old rookie, players tend to start regressing when they're like 29 or 30, so it's hard to get players' ratings up when they're older. So younger rookies are definitely better to target, but don't count out the 23 and 24-year-olds. Just know that it's going to be more difficult to develop them because they're going to cost more points to develop and they have less time to reach their peak overall. If you're drafting a player who's 24, you'd like him to already be a pretty polished player. Going back to the safeties here, what I've noticed too is that the safeties are a lot of times hard to differentiate. Their top three is usually a combination of hit power, tackle, and zone coverage. I don't think it's a bad idea at all to save your safety scouting for like when the combine numbers are out, because then at least you can see who the best athletes are and then focus on scouting them. Here is Jacoby Biddle, a second round safety prospect. A- hit power, not that special. Pursuit, zone coverage. Probably not a first round talent to me. I don't find too many safeties I'd like to take in the first round. Pass rushers here though, B+ power, B+ finesse, that is what you're looking for if you want to get to the quarterback. Once you get into the offseason and to offseason stage 2, now scouting is coupled with the combine numbers. Using these numbers, you'll have an idea of how fast a player is, how athletic and agile he is, how strong, how high he can leap. These are very useful in Madden 17, especially the 40-yard dash. I know everybody wants to know how fast the players are. I'm the same way. And this is especially useful for finding players that maybe you didn't like their height and weight or their type and age, but they have great athletic traits. It's worth a shot scouting these players here with the 3 weeks of points that you'll get during the combine. Keep in mind though, sometimes you find combine warriors. Highest skill here is a C+. Normally that's immediately off my board, but because this player is such a great athlete, I'll probably make an exception and be willing to develop him long term. Here's a safety who had first in the 40, first in the vert, but he can't cover. Zone coverage is not on the board, so definitely not a first round prospect. A fourth round prospect, maybe not even that. I do look at what the game thinks these players are in terms of their round grade, but I always have an idea in my head from playing these games so much and knowing what I'm looking for in each player, because when I scout I do know exactly what I'm looking for. And it's important for you to know the same in terms of what kind of receiver you want to go find, or what are your needs in the defensive line. Is it a run stopper or a pass rusher? And if you look at the types, and if you look at the combine numbers, you can get an idea of who fills what needs that you have. Obviously, only knowing the top 3 skills for a player is not going to tell you exactly who that player is, but it's going to tell you what that player's strengths are, and also lets you know at what caliber those strengths are at, whether it's like an A- power move or a B-. It's a very big difference. By the way, here was an interesting prospect I found. The fastest and the strongest tight end. Unfortunately, he was a blocking tight end and not much of a receiver. So I spent a couple hours scouting in this franchise to get us to the draft, and I ended up with 60 players on my watch list. I have 7 picks to make, so I definitely have a lot of options throughout the draft. You can see plenty of 3rd and 4th and 5th rounders, not just focusing on the first few rounds, because otherwise you're going to be ending up just throwing darts in the last couple picks. Now, I overall scouted a total of 136 players. Not all of them were fully scouted, but most of them were, and I did not have expert scouting for this example. I don't think there is a magic number for players to have on your watch list or players fully scouted, but you want as many options as possible, and keep an eye on the draft stories throughout the year. That's one thing I have to do a much better job of, and see who the game is talking about. And it's a cool little added element to the storytelling if you're into that with franchise, which you guys know that I am. Here is what my watch list looks like for this Panthers franchise. I mainly focused on going to find a running back, some defensive back help, a little bit of O-line. I'm not actually going to use this team, but I wanted to have kind of a plan of sorts for this little example that I was going to do. And we're getting close to the end of the video, so just my last words for this are that when you're scouting first and second round players, try to find those B+ and those A-. If a player has like a B- and is a first round prospect, you might just want to move on and not fully scout that player. Save some points when you don't need to find more information about a player. But if there is a player that you like and you'll consider drafting, always finish scouting them, because you don't want to end up making a mistake that could have been saved with only 5 points. Also focus on finding players who are more complete early in the draft, and be okay with the ones later that only have one strength, because one strength is sometimes all you need if your role is specific, like a 7th round pass rusher with a B+ power move. I'll take that guy every single time. If you find a player you like at a position in the first round, see if there's a guy in the 3rd or 4th that is equal or close to equal talent. so that you give yourself flexibility if you miss out. I believe that covers everything I wanted to talk about in this video, and I hope you all enjoyed it. And if you were looking for some help, I hope that this did help you out. Let me know down in the comment section if this was useful for you. Leave a like if it was. And let me know down in the comment section regarding team building, what else would you like to see me talk about? Come back to my channel soon and I'll have the follow-up to this video where I go ahead and draft now using the scouting information that I've gotten from this session. If you enjoyed this video, check out the rest of my channel and subscribe. I'll see you guys next time. Have a great day.